to have a spiritual experience. Special place. Special places, I should say, that many have had wonderful spiritual experiences, including myself. So I wanted them to be able to have a spiritual experience, let it touch their heart.
I think they had so much love for the gospel, and they knew their journey would be tough, and it just kind of sets a stepping stone for us, that they sacrificed, and some did die along the way, and some will die along the way even now, but they made that journey for us, and their example, and I think their love for the Lord shows us as well, and our love for the Lord to keep going strong and enduring to the end.
Well, the theme for Trek was I can do hard things, and I think our generation feels like they have it hard, and I mean, we do have it hard, but when you think about what the pioneers sacrificed, we don't sacrifice very much to have the blessings of the temple and gospel in our lives, and they had to sacrifice, a lot of them sacrificed their lives for the temple, the gospel.
There's a lot of times when I stopped and pondered to myself when we were pulling those wagons is that what was their purpose for going on trek? Why did they cross those plains at the time they did to come to Salt Lake? And the thought, even the missionaries went over the stories and stuff. It says the reason they went was because of their faith. They believed in Jesus Christ and the gospel that it brought. And I think that's sometimes at Trek, I think we forgot the real reason we went was to know why, the reason why they went. Why they went was for their religion. It was so they can worship God freely without being persecuted.
I do remember that morning before we left, telling those that were in the chapel there, and we had originally, and I guess it had originally been planned to not have it in the chapel, but have it in the cultural hall, and I said, no, this would have been their Sunday best, maybe better than their Sunday best. Let's have it in the chapel. I just felt the Spirit of the Lord a lot better. But as to the quote I made of there's not a lot to see in Wyoming, or on this trek, but there's a lot to feel. I remember as I was made that statement that I was thinking about the Nephites in chapter 11 of 3rd Nephi, and how they were standing around the temple discussing the things that they had seen and the changes that happened in the land, and they heard a voice, and it said it wasn't a loud, harsh voice, it wasn't a loud voice. Nevertheless, it being a small voice, it did pierce them to the center, and it caused their hearts to quake, their souls to quake, and their hearts to burn. And as they heard the voice again, they still didn't understand it. But the third time, it said they opened their ears and they were able to understand the voice. I think many times we're given many opportunities to have a spiritual experience, and we haven't opened our ears or our eyes or our hearts to allow that to happen. And I would have to say I'm very guilty of that myself. And we recognize our Heavenly Father in all that we do.
November 1856, just west of Devil's Gate, a place they now call Martin's Cove, sacred ground of faith. Some hours ago we somehow crossed sweet water sheets of ice. At times it took away your breath, at times it took your life.
The sky is growing dark again, there's little food to eat. A chilling wind cuts to the bone, I cannot feel my feet. I know that Zion lay just ahead as I rest and close my eyes. Well, I wake to see the morn of made paradise.
Go bring them in from the plains, go bring them in from the storm. Like a fire the Spirit's burning, bring them in and keep them warm. Go bring them in from the plains, go bring them in from the cold. Wrap your loving arms around them, bring His peace to their soul.
The other thing I was amazed with, though, was the youth. That was one of my concerns, was that many people and trying to keep things under control, but it was organized so well, the committee did so well. The ma's and pa's took care of their families. I was just amazed at how well people interacted with each other, how well behaved they were. As we went into the Dan Jones Cove and that music was playing, which, wow, set a mood. It was silent, I thought, and just 330 people go in and sit down and not chatting and talking, but were absorbing. It was a wonderful experience.
Bring them in from the plains, bring them in from the storm. Like a fire the Spirit's burning, bring them in and keep them warm. Go bring them in from the plains, go bring them in from the cold. Wrap your loving arms around them, bring His peace to their soul.
My favorite part of Trek was seeing the youth grow in their testimony and come back just with excitement. And I thought beforehand I had a real clear vision of what my favorite part was going to be, and that was going to be the testimony meeting on Friday night at Rock Creek Hollow as a group. But that didn't end up happening for various reasons, and I was pretty bummed about that it wasn't going to be happening. But I think in the end, some of the wards had their own testimony meetings, and some of the youth had their own personal experiences in that area, because we were able to really just slow down, relax. Weather ended up being perfect, and we just had time to do our own thing.
Like a fire the Spirit's burning, bring them in and keep them warm. Go bring them in from the front, go bring them in from the cold. Wrap your loving arms around them, bring His peace. Go bring them in from the plains, go bring them in from the storm.
Bring them in and keep them warm.
Bring them in from the cold. Bring His peace to their soul.
In November 1856, pioneers in the Martin Handcart Company were caught by deep snow and cold weather in the mountains of Wyoming. They had already lost many of their members along the way to cold and disease. Starving and fatigued, they met the icy Sweetwater River and felt that they could go no further. Grown men sat on the frozen ground and cried with their wives and children. Then, to their amazement, rescuers appeared on the horizon. 3 18-year-old young men stepped forward and carried nearly every member of the handcart company across the river. The strain was so terrible and the exposure so great that in later years all these young men died from the effects of what they did that day. President Brigham Young cried like a child when he heard what they had done. He later said that act alone would guarantee these young men an everlasting salvation in the celestial kingdom of God, worlds without end. Frozen clouds of winter hid the morning sun. At the river's edge our hopes were swept away. It seemed we'd reached the bitter end before we had begun, and we'd already prayed all that we could pray. Then somewhere in the distance, like a precious ray of sun, angels sent from heaven, they had come. One by one, they carried us across the water, fighting back the cold until we reached the other side. And step by step, we put our trust in them to guide us, amazed that they would offer such a willing sacrifice, a story that the world may never know, how one by one they brought us home. Hour after weary hour, they fought the river's might, and I wondered what would move a soul to give their mercy for a stranger was the perfect love of Christ, reaching through devoted hands so that we could live. Now the years have passed, and I have grown to realize there's one who came to rescue us from every storm of life. And one by one, he carries us across the water, sheltered in his arms until we reach the other side. And step by step, we put our trust in him to guide us, amazed that he would offer such a willing sacrifice, the greatest love the world will ever know. One by one, he'll bring us home. One by one, he'll bring us home.
made it from our camp to the river crossing where the missionaries were telling a story. My husband Keith had told me, you know, go sit down on the grass while the story's being told and stuff. And then at that point, my husband's decided I should probably go back to camp, that he should probably take me back to camp. And I really didn't want to do that. I just wanted to continue on with my family. My 3 boys were with me and didn't want to send them by themselves. It was decided we would give me a blessing, and that was a really neat experience, just to know that the priesthood is available to us wherever we are and no matter what we're feeling. And for me to be sitting on the grass with some amazing men, young men, and elders and leaders around that were so willing to administer to me. After the blessing, the paramedic there asked me, he said to me, what do you feel like? Do you feel like you could go on, or do you feel like you need to go back to camp? And I so bad wanted to say I wanted to go on, that I could go on, but I really didn't feel sure that I could do it. So it was hard because I'm emotional, crying. My sons are emotional, they're crying, and they're older boys. They're 15 to 20, but still the thought of sending them off without me or my husband had to go back to camp with me, was really heartbreaking. And to think about that in the pioneer perspective of having to go on without your loved ones, very often, more than one, you would lose somebody, you know, a spouse, your children, and to think about having to go on without them is pretty heart-wrenching.
I know for her especially, this was really hard because she didn't want us to go by ourselves, because our dad would have to go back with her, just with rules and stuff. They couldn't be back by themselves, but she was more worried about us than herself. And I knew that we would be okay.
Definitely something I enjoyed. Well, when at first going into it, when I didn't want to be there, kind of a thing. Definitely after everything happened and being there, just the first day, I definitely felt like I should have chose to go. I shouldn't have even thought about not going in the first place. And then leaving was kind of difficult. Like, I kind of wanted to stay for the same reasons that he said. I don't know, it felt easier to help people while you're there, even though you can still do that here. It felt so much easier while we were there.
The women's pool, I think, was an interesting event. Obviously, I don't think any of us in any part of the trek experienced what those who did that were there, the original Martin and Willie Company. But to watch those sisters have to pull those hand carts by themselves, and left a hole in your heart. You know, you weren't there to help, and that's where we're supposed to be as priesthood bearers, to support our families and to do those things to take care. And when you're drawn on the outside and you can't do that, or they're having to serve you, it's a different perspective.
I broke my leg a couple months back, and so I couldn't go on the women's pool. It was really hard to watch my friends go up the hill, and I couldn't help them because I'm just like that type of person who likes to help others. But I had to stand there and watch them pull the cart up the hill, and I looked over at the boys, and that was what they were feeling, and I knew then like how hard it was for them because I had to watch them suffer as well. Women's pool was kind of what hit me most on trek. Is I was injured throughout the whole trek. I just hurt my knee before going onto it, and I was really nervous to do that. It's the last day of really doing stuff. Most excruciating from just walking the whole thing, which I was pretty proud of. So our ward alone, we said a little prayer together, and then before getting ready to go up and hearing the stories of the people who had gone up with the pioneers, we were singing as Sisters in Zion or Put Your Shoulder to the Wheel, and they kind of brought the spirit to us and helping push the ward up, or not the ward, but our handcart was very difficult. You get going and just you're pushing with all your might, and then you realize there's still more to come, and it's really, it made me think a lot about the trials. With going through high school, you think you're just about done, and then it just gets a little harder, but it's worth it in the end. I went up and down, I think a total of 3 or 4 times, helping other people, and by the end I was done, but I wouldn't have changed anything. If anything, I would have gone up and down more to help more people, because even without actual people there, you felt people like pushing next to you or pushing you to just keep going, and you knew the spirit was there. And watching all the priesthood holders sitting at the top of the hill, it really hit your heart.
Angels are calling your name. Do you feel it? Do you feel it? Heaven is lighting a flame. There's a voice in your heart whispering who you are. Can you see it? Can you see it? Your place in the Father's design. Are you ready? Are you ready? This is your season to shine. There's a voice through the dark, gathering noble hearts. You carry the light of His Son, and running through your veins His royal blood. You're the brave and the strong, you're the faithful. You have been saved for this moment. your place. Can you hear the angels calling you? Do you recognize your name? Can you see your part in His design? No one else can take your place. There's a voice clear and strong. You're right where you belong. You carry the light of His Son, and running through your veins is royal blood. You're the brave and the strong. You're the faithful. You have been saved for this moment in time. You hear the call, you feel the flame. You've been prepared. Come take your place. You are the brave, you are the strong.